Brought to you by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. This is InGoal Radio, the podcast. What a fabulous feature interview we have for you today. From the Florida Panthers, author of one of the saves of the first week, Spencer Knight, gets into a wide-ranging, very engaging conversation with Kevin Woodley. You don't want to miss it because he has a stance on those American Hockey League pit stops that may surprise you, given what we know about professional sports and athletes wanting to be in the one place all the time, and that being the higher level, really jumped out at me. And in our gear segment, we are going to chat about coveted masks. Maybe not one of the frontline masks that people give all the attention to, but certainly has tested well in a test sponsored by the National Hockey League. That is coming up with Cam and Kevin as we bring in the co-founders of InGoal magazine, Kevin Woodley and David Hutchison. David, we got a lot going on today. I want your Vezina pick, but you can't name a Russian in it because everybody's going to go Vasilevsky or Sorokin or Samsonov, or Shesterkin. Run down the list of the Russians. But we also have October saves chatting this week. That campaign continues.
Where do I begin? This is like a Kevin Woodley interview. You just asked me three questions, I think, and I'm not sure which one to answer.
I'm rubbing
all of the above.
I'm rubbing off on Darren. I'm so happy.
I mean, if the only way to answer those together would be to pick one of the Washington Capitals, like maybe Darcy Kemper, because he's involved in October saves, and they are counting his saves as part of this great charitable effort. So I'm sorry, Darcy. I love what you were doing for October saves, and I think it's a great thing to get behind. But if I'll start with my pick, my non-Russian pick for the Vezina Trophy, let's go Freddie Anderson. I think he's got an opportunity to have a great season behind a fantastic team in Carolina, and I think the time is his. Toronto Maple Leaf fans are going to be looking at this, wishing they'd kept him a few years ago. He might have been the answer to get them through a few rounds of the playoffs, and I think he will lead the league this year in winning the Vezina Trophy for non-Russian goaltenders.
Woodley, let's stay on that theme.
Well, so
with the Vezina.
So to hell with you, Hutch, because I don't know if you listened to. I was on another podcast this morning as a guest.
Why would I listen to you on any other show?
That's true, but Freddie was my pick, and that's what I was going to use here. But since you've done it, and you know I love to answer with more than one.
I was so thankful Darren asked me first.
What about? And he's got one, so I feel like this shouldn't be an outside the box. But you said just non-Russians. It's only one game, and he was brilliant on a big stage against one of the top early teams in the National Hockey League. The defense wasn't great in front of him, but I actually expect it to get better because of a coaching change. Have we maybe written, I don't think anybody wrote him off, but have we maybe forgotten about Connor Hellebuck prematurely? Because he looked really good early. And my second one, you want outside the box? Your neck of the woods, Darren. Everyone asks questions about the Vegas Golden Knights goaltending. What are they going to do without Robin Lehner? And you know I'm as big a Robin Lehner fan as anyone. But the reality is Logan Thompson's numbers last season, if he were to have produced them for an entire year, were a 100% worthy of Vezina Trophy conversation. And he's off to an almost identical start statistically this year when I look at the underlying profile. Logan Thompson, if he can maintain it, and that is a big if, because doing it for 82 or over the course of an 82-game season is not easy. But for all the question marks surrounding him, all he's done is go out there and stop the puck at a top 10 level in the National Hockey League. So if I'm going outside the box, because I feel like Hellebuck isn't, considering he's already got a Vezina, let's go way outside the box and go with Logan.
Did I have to go outside the box on this one? I didn't know that was an option.
There was no outside the box.
Woody's now
all
inventing
I said was
questions
non-Russian.
too. That's good.
Well, you stole my other ones. So
I just said non-Russian because we would all have the same one or two names.
That's true.
That's why. And that's not taking away from Vasilevsky or Shesterkin. Those are the favorites to win the award. I just wanted to spice things up, but then he added this whole outside the box thing.
Okay, I apologize. So are we is it all Russians? Because like Ilya Sorokin, some people, when I gave that answer earlier this year, and people are like, ooh, And then
he was my pick last year, so that means he's probably winning this year because I have a track record on that.
There you go. So Sorokin, does he count? He's Russian, Darren, but do you consider him in that same vein? Because some people do. I wasn't allowed to use...
Yes, he's Russian.
Okay. But no, but do you consider him like he's at that level where it's like you can't pick Gretzky in your hockey pool. Like, remember the years when you weren't allowed to pick him? Like, you can't pick those
Dude, he
three.
said not Russian. You can't even pick Tretiak.
Oh, man.
I don't know why this was so hard. Maybe I did ask too many questions at the start.
I'm easily...
But I thought it was fairly simple.
I'm easily confused. I'm not the brightest guy.
Well, as long as Woody's going outside the box, I'm not going to pick this as a Vezina Trophy winner. But we hear him talking a lot, including in the feature interview this week, about the passing of the torch and the greats that have retired recently. I think this is the year we see one of the young guys really step it up and make a name for himself. Somebody, a Carter Hart, a Spencer Knight, maybe even Stuart Skinner. He's on pace right now for letting in 0 goals this season. Great start to the year. Somebody's going to step up and show that they're one of the new guys this year. Looking forward to seeing what happens.
Well, if Logan Thompson is in the Vezina mix,
and he'd be a young guy too.
Probably wins the Calder. The last goaltender to win the Vezina and the Calder in the same year, Ed Belfour. Back in 1991, Tom Barrasso also did it when he broke into the league in the mid 80s. But that would be...
Did Dryden do it?
White. I don't know whether Dryden did it.
Tony Esposito did it with 5th.
Was the Vezina not different?
Yeah, it was.
Then?
It was. It was basically the equivalent of the Jennings. Now. Yeah. But he did it with 15 shutouts as a rookie.
Mm-hmm. That should
going way back.
That should put you into consideration.
I think so. Yeah.
Nobody mentioned Jacob Markstrom. That's my pick.
Okay, there you go.
Just throw that in. I'm not going to give you 20 guys like Woody, and I'm not going to start making up different classifications or anything like that. But
however, if the voting ends on a Thursday, then I have a different pick.
Yes.
Listen. Are the GMs still voting on the award? Because it might as well be like it used to be, sort of like the Jennings, because you can just basically pick the top 3 guys in wins, and that's who they're going to choose.
Yeah, it's the winnings.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give everybody a Vezina caliber type consideration if you're involved in October saves, Woody.
100%. And if you are involved in October saves and you're signed up and raising money to help in the fight against cancer, you are eligible for some great prizes, including this week, autographed Carey Price jersey, courtesy of InGoal magazine. We've teamed up with October Saves on a number of different initiatives. Gave away some InGoal swag last week, the very coveted, a limited edition InGoal magazine goalie jersey, some t-shirts, 3/4 zip hoodie. This week, Carey Price signed jersey. Next week, Connor Hellebuck autographed sticks. Speaking of Vezina Trophy winners, we got lots of great stuff. October Saves does lots of great things. I really recommend you sign up. And another way that we've teamed up with them is just by basically donating. Well, not basically, we are donating. 50% of all new subscription revenue in the month of October is being donated to October Save. So if you've been sitting on the fence about when to sign up for InGoal Premium to get all that exceptional content, pro reads, video breakdown sessions with NHL goalies explaining their reads and their save selections, why they choose a certain save, what they're looking for from attacking players, what they look for on pass options, all those great things. Drills, tips, all kinds of stuff from NHL goalies and goalie coaches. $50 a year, half of it in the month of October goes to October Saves. Never been a better time to raise money for a great charity and become an InGoal Premium member. Make sure you check it out. It's on the front page of our website. There's a link there, ingoalmag.com. Both how to sign up and get involved with October Saves. Even though the month is more than half over, it's not too late. You got 2 weeks left. Great prizes await. And sign up for InGoal Premium, and half your money goes to October Saves to help raise money in the fight against cancer. Check it out now at ingoalmag.com.
Oh, awesome ability to help a great cause and also benefit yourself as a goaltender or that goaltender in your family. When you talk about which save selection goaltenders will lean on at a certain time, how about the Spencer Knight glove save, Hutch, or that beautiful save by our buddy with the Montreal Canadiens coming up with a stick grab and knocking that out of the air?
A couple of Save of the Year candidates, one on each side. That's the kind of stuff we live for, and we've seen lots of it already this year. I want to throw in as my dark horse for this save. It's not even really a save. The Jack Campbell hit as well. Yeah. So that was another highlight for me. But great to see these guys doing what they do best early in the season. Thank heavens hockey's back, boys.
What save impressed you more, Woody? Jake Allen reaching back with the top of the stick blade, or that Spencer Knight cross crease glove?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's
two totally different saves.
Yeah, I love, like, you can see Jake watches it the whole way, right? Like, it's not just a wild flail desperation. I reach my paddle across and the guy hit it. Like, he's tracking that thing and he's he's actively getting that stick on that puck up in the corner. But I think I gotta go, man, is there anything better than a backdoor glove save? I mean, a lot of goalies are getting across with the pad, but not a lot of goalies are getting that rotation and coming across with the glove, not just over top of the pad and access to that puck and seeing it, but actually being able to, like, some guys have it there, but like that's a reactive save. Like, you can see that he's tracking that and sees it. And I mean, and plus he's our featured guest this week in such a great interview. Mm-hmm. Spencer Knight. I'm going Spencer Knight. Sorry, Jake. Jake's got other things to celebrate. He's got the night off tonight. They're expecting their third child. He's away from the team for that. So he's got bigger things. He doesn't need our prizing right now. He's got bigger prizes in life. We're going to give him this one to the kid, Spencer.
He was rock solid in those first couple of games. The Spencer Knight play, though, there was no cheating on that. Like, he followed it in across to his right and then back to his left. He wasn't over challenging that pass across. I love it.
I think that's a really good point, actually, Darren. The fact that it was an over and back, like, that's an incredible read, an incredible ability to hold your edges so you can make that play. I think that's the kind of stuff that we live for.
I also love to see the way he loaded up and got such a solid, like again, not just a push, not just a desperation push, but really good rotation, stays over top of it.
Patience.
And the way he loads up that push leg makes me wonder, and we'll hear about it in the interview,
what kind of skates he's wearing?
Bauer Connect. So we'll have another one of the converts. We'll hear from Spencer Knight about what he likes about those skates and what modification Bauer made to his ones.
I've seen a couple of the Bauer Connect skates on professionals, and I've seen a couple of the custom modifications that maybe equipment managers are doing, different ways to tweak the skate. I'll pass that along. I
want to hear more about that.
Oh, yeah.
Darren.
See, I'm jealous, Darren, because we're still not in the locker room here in Vancouver, so I'm missing that opportunity. Soon, though. Soon.
Where can you get, if you wanted to buy Bauer Connect skates?
You can get them at the Hockey Shop or thehockeyshop.com. And the one thing that I will say about the Bauer Connect skate, it's very important that you get them fitted properly. We talked about this when we launched our first review. You need to, sometimes you won't even be able to get your foot in that skate before it's been baked. So you really need to be dealing with experts that understand the process, how the skate works, and how to fit it properly to you, because it really is a custom skate out of the box. And whether it's Bauer, whether it's True, whether it's CCM, doesn't matter. When you need that type of expert advice, when you need the expertise on how to properly fit equipment, how to choose equipment that fits your game, there's no better place to get it than the Hockey Shop, currently in Surrey, soon to be Langley. Big move coming up, folks, but also thehockeyshop.com. Cam, we love to celebrate him here, leads the crew, but the reality is the entire staff. You go down to Goalie Utopia, the basement at the current location, or wherever they have it at the new location, can't wait to show it to you, and talk to anyone in the goalie department. This isn't like going into some big box store and the guy who happens to walk by as you're looking at pads never played the position. Everyone in the Hockey Shop goalie department, they not just play it, but they're passionate about it. It's just like us. Like, they love this position. They love the nitty gritty details of why something might work for you or might not work for you. And they will help you find the equipment, whether it's the Bauer Connect or not. They won't just sell you the latest and greatest unless it's going to fit, unless it's going to work. That's why we go to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports. That's why you should shop at the Hockey Shop Source for Sports or thehockeyshop.com. Great prices, but even better service by people that not just play the position, but have the same type of passion that we have for the position at InGoalMag.com.
Don't let me forget the little modifications some guys are making to the skate at the higher level just to make it so personal for them. But I want to add that after the Spencer Knight conversation in a little bit, because it plays off what Spencer says about the wheels. What's happening over at the Hockey Shop source for sports, Surrey? A lot of discussion this week about masks, Woody, and maybe a new player based on test results that the National Hockey League sponsored. Now, test results, please take with a little grain of salt. I'm not saying that that they're all bad or they're all good. I think it's great that we're doing them, and any little test result is going to give you some information, but please take the whole thing in context. But we're talking about Coveted masks this week.
Yeah, and Coveted scored really well when the NHL did its testing. Now, puck impacts at 80 miles an hour and 100 miles an hour, as well as what they call linear impacts. In other words, sort of like more like getting hit by a forward, both straight on and from the side. The NHL brought this about in March. I think our good friend on Instagram, the GoalNet, published some of the results and showed that Coveted did really well here. And it was actually both models. What really surprised me is that not only did the higher end pro and senior models do well, but the lower price point base model did really well. And so seeing some of those results and being in the Hockey Shop, that was the one thing. They had that mask wall, and they got so many different. What I love is that they bring in other brands, not just the big names, not just the big companies, but they bring in some of these smaller, handmade brands like Coveted. And I'd seen them on the wall, but we had never talked about them. So seeing these great results from the NHL testing, knowing that they had them in there, I think the thing I like most about the selection at the Hockey Shop when it comes to masks is we all know how important fit is when it comes to safety of masks. It's I go back to the Eddie Schultz from Eddie Mask days and him telling me fit is the most important thing. NHL goalies, fit is the most important thing. By having all these different models and all these different brands, those experts at the Hockey Shop can make sure they can find a fit that works for you. And special note here, when it comes to Coveted, Cam has the ability to do a little playing with the foam package to help make sure it fits you as a goalie. I'll let him explain in our latest gear segment. Welcome back to the Hockey Shop Source for Sports. I'm down here again with Cam Matwiv in Goalie Utopia, surrounded by all the latest and greatest in goaltending equipment. But today we're actually going to go to a product that's been here in the shop for a while. They've had success selling it, good feedback with the customers. I've seen it on the mask wall every time I come in, but we haven't actually talked about it on the gear segment. And that is a product I'm not familiar with, one you're going to have to sort of fill me in on, Coveted masks. We've talked a lot about Bauer, CCM, Warrior, all the sort of mainstream brands. We haven't talked about Coveted. So Cam, right off the hop, other than a really cool emblem, what is the difference in Coveted masks between some of the bigger brands? What makes Coveted stand out? What makes them special? What makes the feedback so good from your customers?
So Coveted, smaller brand, and built in Canada. Ron Stefaniak manufacturing the mask, started the company. Basically, we're getting that care factor and that feel-wise for what would be that, 500-ish price point that you would see normally on the wall, which would be a lot of the company's entry-level fiberglasses masks. So we have the A5 kind of sliding in there. Again, similar price point, but you're getting a full fiberglass mask with Kevlar reinforcement all the way throughout, hand-laid. Year warranty on the mask too, which is something that's kind of unheard of, especially at that price point. There's a lot of positive things here for a competing mask where, a lot of other ones, there's kind of just that, just fiberglass, that's it, entry price point kind of idea. So we can really get a chance to dial in the fit with the mask too as well. A lot of flexibility in terms of being able to kind of dial in the foam. This is something I want to do like in-house with you, for example. It wouldn't be an over-the-phone option, but we have the ability to work with Ron and Coveted be able to create, that perfect fitting mask for you.
So just much like we see at the pro level, the shell doesn't change in a lot of cases. It's just the foams that are changed. Traditional foam, we've seen some
Standard
of the bigger
VN foam
companies
liner.
go with impact, sort of absorbing high-end foams. This is standard, like you said, VN liner. But again, right up to the National Hockey League, some of the so many goalies going over to Pro's Choice, that is a traditional foam type liner, and they just build out the foams to sort of make the mask fit the head in part. That's the option we have here.
Yes, yeah. So we're getting three variations in terms of the overall shell size, but we start with the youth mask, so just the one size in youth. Then I have junior, small, medium, and then senior, large, extra large. Basically, that junior helmet between the small and the medium, it's the exact same shell shape, but it's the foam package that changes, between the two sizes. Same thing with the senior. Same shell shape, but large is one size of foam, and then XL is one size of foam.
All right, so that's the A5, like you said, in the $500 price point range. Fiberglass mask with Kevlar reinforcement, hand-laid, Canadian-made, coveted mask, but it's not the only option you have on the wall when it comes to options from Coveted. We've also got the 906, which I think based on the name, I'm guessing feels a little bit like a heavier mask, so probably more Kevlar in there in this one, Kevlar throughout, if I'm not mistaken. And, as you can see by the look and sort of profile of it, I don't think it's a stretch to say that 906 probably tells us this is somewhat related to an old school 960. You can see the chin profile. What else? What changes in this? We're into sort of more of a $1,000 mask versus $500. What changes in this from the A5 to the 906?
So yeah, once again, we are talking about jumping up to that pro level mask. So again, competing levels with that CCM Pro mask and the Enemy One, the Warrior, and the Phantom Pro. Again, in terms of fit wise, a little bit more of an open fit. Again, the ability to dial that in a little bit more, something we'd want to do in house. Who's it for? Again, you're looking for that pro level helmet. You are seeing that increase in terms of overall protection provided by that Kevlar lay that he is doing there.
We've seen this worn in the National Hockey League?
Yes, we have.
Malcolm Subban?
Malcolm Subban would be the one.
Anybody else?
Off the top of my head, I believe Kaskasulo has a two-piece helmet, but it's not something we offer off the bat, but it is made by Coveted.
Obviously, right up to the highest level, this is a builder, a mask maker that we've seen goalies at that level put their trust in. Yep. So if you're heading into junior, maybe even major midget, as the shots are getting a lot harder and you're worried about that extra level of protection, beer leaguers probably getting away with the A5 unless you're playing a really high level, and you might look to upgrade to this. At the end of the day, you're just getting more protection in this one. Like you said, that full Kevlar reinforcement. Any other differences between this and the A5?
Shape, you can see that right off the bat. But we covered kind of most of it there right off the bat. Couple quick notes. Both masks are HEC and CSA certified. So you guys shop it down in the States. This is an option that you can
Goes
use
across the border.
At cross-border ships. So definitely check that out. Again, great overall fit, backed with good warranty. It's a half year on the 906. Again, 1 year on that A5. We're talking about structural faults in the mask, anything like that. Paint chips and dings and like that are going to happen over the course. It is hockey we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen.
They are shooting at our heads.
Yes. Well, hopefully not, but it tends to happen.
You should see my beer league team. That's warm-ups. I also noticed, hopefully I've got this right, but instead of just a little leather tab in between the cage and the shell, looks like a little bit of almost like a rubber grommet that sort of seals that. So I'd imagine a little bit of impact protection, a little bit of stability.
Just trying to set yourself aside on that wall of just having something slightly a little bit different. So
love it. Coveted. I wish I'd known more about them before. As you said, handcrafted in Canada. Good feeling, good looking product. We'll get some more shots of that up. Cam, really appreciate you walking us through this option. If you got any questions, especially when it comes to that option to sort of dial in the foam to your head, something we want to do, as Cam mentioned a couple times, in store as opposed to the hockeyshop.com customers. But if you're around and in the area, you don't mind Cam touching your head with a tape measure, make sure you come down and check it out. If you got any questions about it, where can they get you?
You get me 604-589-8299 or 1-800-567-7790.
Coveted Mask. Check them out.
Yeah, a really cool mask model and manufacturer that is making inroads in the National Hockey League with Coveted. I've been watching them for a while, some of the different things that they're doing. The mold, it's a traditional type mold, right? Like the 960.
They call it the 906.
906,
It has a shape that does look similar to the 960. I mean, the
To the
fact it's
960,
called the
yeah.
906 probably tells you they're playing off that a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of the other models that you can see it in the video, and this is a great reminder as people listening to us are like, "What's he talking about?" Check it out. We've got video. This isn't just a audio production. We do have video. You can always catch it on Instagram, IGTV, on YouTube. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button on both. If you're not following us on Instagram, make sure you do that. But if you want to sort of see the videos and see those shapes, I'd say less sort of sharp lines, a little more rounded lines in some of the other model than we've seen, from some other brands, and just sort of like I think that I'd qualify that as a little more of a traditional feel. Darren, maybe a little sort of wider, not as long chin on some of the other models, but again, check it out on YouTube. You can see it for yourself.
Do you guys like the sharper edges, or do you like a rounder mold? This is purely personal preference. Not that you're ever going to pick safety or rounded edges, put those against each other, that kind of thing. But I'm just wondering the look of it.
Like shelf appeal matters, right? Like something that pops off the shelf, like this matters. Companies research it long and hard to make sure. And I got to be perfectly honest with you, like other than maybe being a little resistant to super long chins, despite not wearing a dangler. Sorry, Darren. I don't know that there's anything. I don't know that I've ever gone to the mask wall and been like, "Oh, I'm never wearing that," just because of how it looks. But I know other people do, so I guess I should just defer to others on this one because it's just not part of my thought process.
I like a rounded top of the mask. I don't like the fat, wide chin. That bothers me for some reason. I don't know why. The mirror test, and, all that kind of stuff. Length of the chin has never really got into it.
But you like it.
So you wear.
You like it narrow. You like the old Dion, the old Dion, or
Michelle Dion.
yeah.
Everybody's scrambling for Google right now. Why is Michelle Dion trending right now? What about you, Hutch?
I like the sharper edges. I like anything that creates a narrower profile because I just keep thinking of the physics of it and deflecting things. And I find the ones that have the rounder profile to them seem to also create a bit of a flatter surface if you happen to get tagged straight on. So,
wow.
Well, and that's the other thing. So some of the companies have built in some of those sharper lines that you talk about Darren, very purposely, not just from an aesthetic standpoint, but with the idea that, hey, the puck is more likely to deflect off this as opposed to catch it flush and have the mask absorb more of the impact. So there's a lot of thought process that goes into it. But let me ask you this one. Like, forget mirror test, because again, it's important to some people. What about just picking it up? Like, because this is the one thing that drives me nuts, and I've seen goalies do it. They will go into the hockey shop and they will grab it by the cage, like put the two fingers through the cage and pick it up. And like, if it's heavy, they'll put it back down. Like, so the weight matters. So we got all these companies that are trying to pass that test by cutting weight. But if the mask is well balanced on your head, you don't necessarily feel that weight like you would holding it up out in front of you with two fingers. And I've always kind of struggled with this, to be honest. I understand why that test matters in our minds as goalies. But unless it's like super heavy to the point where you feel like, my neck is tired, don't you want something with a little more beef, a little more structure? Like, do I want super light on my head as guys shoot pucks? Well, in my case, like 70, 80 miles an hour? They're certainly not hitting 100. I was going to use the old cliched 100 miles an hour, but let's have a reality check here. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a conversation I used to have with Eddie Schultz from Eddie Masks. Very passionate, and one of the, for a long time was one of the premier mask makers. And I would have that conversation. I remember having it with Kevin Weeks. Like, hey, do I really want I want something with some sturdiness to it? And with all due respect to Eddie, it wasn't long after that he started chasing weight and lighter weight. And within a year and a half, 2 years, we didn't have Eddie masks anymore. I think there was something to those, things a little more beef. And I wonder if the fact that some of these handmade masks are doing better in testing at the NHL level, again, with a grain of salt in terms of some of the limitations of those tests, and the fact that custom manufacturers can maybe design one that fits the head mold better. I've got questions. Let's just say I've got questions, because the masks that, we talk about all these new tech and foams and everything, but some of the masks that have just old traditional VN foam liners are testing better. So, man, I guess the key here is options. And at the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, you've got options to find the best one for you.
And you can have the best mask in the world. If it fits terribly, it's not going to do you any good. And if you can have an average mask and it fits perfectly, you're much more protected. You got to find something that works for you fit-wise before you chase all the modern technology.
And that's why you should contact Cam at the Hockey Shop. If the coveted mask we just talked about interests you, make sure you drop him a line, send him a note, because there is, to certain degrees, an ability to dial in that foam package to fit your head a little bit better.
Awesome stuff. We've got the Sensorina VR feature interview up next. Spencer Knight from the Florida Panthers. And I want to tell you, Hutch, thank you very much. And to Sensorina as well. I did the baseline, and I'm very happy that I put that into the deposit box. And now I have something to judge against any future type of recklessness on my part or incident on other people's part.
That's great to hear. Was it? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, it's not that hard. It's just a bit of a process, and you gotta find it, and you gotta spend the time and be prepared to invest that couple of minutes in it. You don't want to be distracted or dealing with the other stuff that's going on in and around the house. Make sure that you can really dedicate it, and it's not as complicated as I thought baseline tests were back when I first heard about
Have you had a regular one?
No,
ever?
But I've never undergone one, but I've heard about them. But when I first ever heard about baseline testing, I thought it was in some kind of weird, highly technical lab.
No, they just ask you what day of the week it is.
Yeah.
No, literally. And my poor son almost failed that one this week. So his team had their baseline test this weekend. And what day is it? I know it's Saturday, but on the calendar, let's see, my birthday was a week and a day ago, and he did the math and figured it out. But they're very common questions that you get asked. And as I told you last week when we were talking about this, he had a teammate who almost failed it as well because they had to do the months backwards, and his response was, "I'm not sure I can do them forwards." So some of these tests are sort of interesting. Woody, is it true that you failed a baseline test and they just said don't play hockey?
Well, this is the thing. This is why I haven't done my baseline test through Sensorina. I'm worried, I will do it, and instead of giving me a score, it will just ask me, how do you function as an adult?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Have you thought of tennis?
Hey, and if you have thought of tennis, Sensorina is also a way to go, because not only are they the premier off-ice training tool for goaltenders, they've now expanded into the tennis market as well. So if you believe in virtual reality training as we do, grab Sensorina, whether you're a tennis player or a goaltender, or indeed if you're a player. And one of the great things about Sensorina is that you get 2 licenses with your annual membership in the Sensorina program. And if you happen to have a brother, a sister, mother, a father who are a player, and you're a goaltender, well, you can each use one of those licenses and work in Sensorina. You can work in Sensorina along with some of their training partners, like the Los Angeles Kings. Bill Ranford was one of the first on board with Sensorina, the New Jersey Devils, Arizona Coyotes, or even Darren's Vegas Golden Knights. And I'm sure they're not just talking about Darren's use of Sensorina, because it's an incredible training tool that allows you to get training in whether it's specific game scenarios or just specific skills anytime you want, at home, on the road. We all know that if you're a minor league player, you get only minor hockey, you only get a couple of practices a week typically. If you're a beer league player, you get no practices a week. Your chance to improve your skills off the ice Sense Arena is the best training tool that's available to you, and we thank them for bringing our feature interview to us again this week.
I wonder how much floor space you'd need for tennis.
I was going to say, like, that would be a question for me, but I wonder if you're actually running back and forth or just working on the stroke in small spaces. Obviously, you'd have to map it out and provide a safety zone. Because I was thinking, like, you know, we've seen some of the all-time greats use tennis as an off-season training tool, right? Like Henrik Lundqvist talked about the fact that you had to have quick feet, footwork, hand-eye coordination. Like, he loved tennis. In his prime, that was one of his activities in the off-season as a cross-training regimen. So now you don't even need a tennis court to do it. I love it. There's a blend there between tennis and goaltending.
I'm pretty sure if I use Sense Arena for tennis, I'm ending up at the pool with the headset on.
Hey, and you can use
guaranteed.
Sense Arena and count your saves there and apply them to October saves if you want.
Ooh.
You don't have to be on the ice. When you go to grab your Sense Arena, I've got 2 little tips for you. 1, use the code IGM50. That's like InGoal Mag 50. And you can get a discount on top of whatever they might be offering at the time. And if you go there now and go to their website, sensearena.com, they'll have a little pop-up there that asks you for your email address, just so they can keep you updated about developments in the system and so on. And if you do get on the email list, they'll give you a 10% discount today as well. So great ways of grabbing Sense Arena today. It's the beginning of the season. Get your baseline test done. Start working on your skills throughout the year so that you can have the best season you've ever had.
Yeah, you can multitask too and listen to the feature interview with Spencer Knight. And Woody, this is a conversation that I actually thought was going to go a couple of different directions, and you guys went down a rabbit hole to start about BC and what his challenges were in trying to turn pro or stay there, and that was a lot tougher and more intricate than I anticipated. And then to the American Hockey League pit stop.
Well, and the other part too that I loved is, I mean, this is Spencer's 3rd time on the podcast. We had him ahead of his draft year. Got to meet him here in Vancouver because he got drafted here in Van. And then we also had him on after he won the World Juniors. Remember, him and Dustin Wolf came on and did a dual hit. So 3rd time guest, which not many guys make it on 3 times. But the fact that we still had stuff to talk about, new stuff, you know, I would encourage anyone who doesn't know Spencer well to go listen to some of those early podcasts, because we get into, you know, his inspirations and how he got started and all those things. But now it's just more of a catch up. And fascinating to me to talk to a guy who I always viewed as a no stone unturned kid. So he's always looking, if there's a way to get better, he's going to look at it, consider it, and maybe apply it to his game. But balancing that now that he's a pro with, you know, what is my anchor? You know, you want to look for new ways to get better, but you don't want to chase change for the sake of chasing change, because you can lose your foundation. So that part of the conversation. And then, you know, much like Carey Price, a guy who doesn't put the gear on, doesn't skate in June, doesn't skate in July. He waits late for a couple of different reasons that'll let him explain. So to me, that balance between wanting to be the best, and he's as driven as anyone, but not being consumed to the point where that becomes a negative is something that I think he's done really well. And something I think, you know, kind of follows up on the Chris Dreger conversation about pregame routines and when to know when to dial back. Like, these are some important things. We throw a lot of things at goalies, new ideas, new concepts, and everybody wants to embrace them. But man, if you did everything, every idea, every tool in the toolbox, you'd be exhausted at the end of the day. And I loved his approach to that. So just so many takeaways from this conversation. I hope that our audience enjoys our time with Spencer Knight. Really excited to welcome back to the InGoal Radio podcast. Returning guest. It's been a couple of years, and man, oh man, Spencer Knight, has a lot happened in those 2 years. I think the last time we caught up with you officially, although I have given you the nod at the rink, unable to come into the room thanks to COVID, but looking forward to that this year. It's been a couple years. I think it was after the World Junior Championships, you and Wolfie with the dual effort. So in that time, you have turned pro, 2 full years in the NHL and heading into your 3rd season. Bit of a whirlwind. How does it, and a contract extension already. You're already into your 2nd deal. What's this adjustment been like when you look at and think about how recently you were playing college hockey? What goes through your mind?
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me on. I always love coming on the show, but Yeah, the past few years have been sort of a whirlwind. Um, like you said, I was in college a few years ago, just playing hockey, having fun, going to class, and then the next thing you know, you're thrown into the NHL. And to be honest with you, at that time, I'm not sure I told this in the last time, but I wasn't aware of the fact that I would be able to play in the NHL. Due to, and it's not a lack of confidence, but it's more coming out of college. It's so common in almost every single time. Like all the goalies I watched, going through BC, like for example, Demko, Joe Wall, all these goalies, everyone would go to the American League first, right? And so I just thought that was my path, right? Especially as a goalie. I mean, in my lifetime, since I've been following goalies, that were from North America, there weren't many that would go straight to the NHL.
Right. We see skaters, but you're right.
Yeah.
Not a lot of goalies.
Yeah, I see skaters all the time, right? I mean, I had teammates I know would go right to the NHL. I had, you know, friends and other colleges I know, like, once they sign, they're going to be going to the NHL. And goalies, I just never thought of it like that. And so when my agent told me, he's like, hey, you can play a few games, at the end of this year, which is my sophomore year. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, okay, it's one thing to turn pro, but to play NHL, I mean, I was caught off guard, right? So I was a little oblivious to that going into it, just because there weren't many goalies that were doing it, and frankly, I hope that teams start giving some of these younger goalies, some shots, because there are a lot of good goalies out there that I've watched, and goalies are my age, younger, who are maybe like a year older than me, that I know they're good goalies and I know they can handle it. It's just a matter of opportunity, right? So
did that weigh into the decision a little bit? Because I don't know that people were surprised to see you go, because I think everybody thought you were capable for sure. But it was early, and Bob's there, and bam, next thing you know, so are you. Was it a tough decision? I know it's a couple of years, but we haven't talked about it.
Yeah, I know. That's true. It's been a while, but I mean, it was a very hard decision, but I don't think it was because of the fact that I was going to play games or be able to get a few games. Because in the end of the day, making a decision to turn pro, I feel like one NHL game or two, if that was my deciding factor, I didn't see that as being the right thing. I wanted to make sure that I was going to, an organization that cared about me, that, cared about my development as a person and as a player. And just a few NHL games wasn't going to change my mind. Like, oh, I know I can play NHL games. I just want to leave. I'm good. I'm good. I loved BC and Boston College too much to go play a few NHL games, because I knew I was ultimately going to get there. It was just more a matter of when. So I think that, it just came down to the fact that I thought I was ready, to make the jump to the next step, whatever that step is. I thought I was ready. And I think it was the right decision. But at the same time, it was the hardest decision because I loved where I was at BC, and I had such a, tight team, close-knit group with, a coaching staff that really cared about all their players. And I just felt really comfortable there. And it was more stuff off the ice at BC that I was very, just fond of, and just, was reasons why I didn't want to leave. I was almost searching for reasons to stay, to be honest with you. But in the end, I thought I made a great decision. I'm still taking classes, so I'm still trying to get my degree. Yeah, and I'm in touch with all the guys at BC. I watch almost every single one of their games too. I follow the hockey team pretty closely, and I still go back there too whenever I can. So it was a great 2 years.
Well, there's a couple different threads I want to pull on there, and one was just like the transition, and once you make the decision, what it was like. But first off, let's stick with BC for a minute. You mentioned it, right? Like Demko, Wall. I'm old enough to throw out Corey Schneider at you, right? Like that consistent flow of exceptional goaltenders that, move up into the NHL. What's in the water? I'm guessing it's got goalie coaching, systems. Is it the air? Like, what is it that allows goalies to come out of BC and be prepared? I mean, first of all, they're obviously picking good ones, but what is it that allows you guys to come out of there and be prepared for those transitions? Because I get to watch a pretty good one here in Thatcher Demko on a daily basis.
Yeah, I know. So I remember when I started, I think I had to be a squirt at the time or something. Like, I was young. But I remember watching Demko I think it was his last year at the program, or his 18 year. I knew he was going to BC, so I knew who he was, and he was getting drafted, all this stuff. He got there, and I remember just like he was the guy I watched, like, or just like kind of just looked up, or just to see what was going on in BC, and that's how I got attracted to BC hockey, I think. I mean, obviously, the goalie he's turned into today is, I think he's one of the top goalies in the league for sure, I think. But going back to BC, I think there's the on ice stuff, but I think just the off ice stuff. I mean, I'm not sure how, if they obviously they recruit and whatnot, but I think the most I got out of it was just this, prepare me for, life in general. I worked with Mike Ayers on the ice, and, there are times where the thing is we're only there during the season too, right? And
right.
We only play so many games, so there's only so much teaching that can go on in any college environment, right? But we would just, get on the ice early, stay after, just go back and forth and things, watch a little video. And it wasn't like we're doing anything crazy, but I think the relationship, that I had with the coaching staff and the trust that they had in me allowed me as a goalie to go into every single game and do me. I never had to worry about, anything else besides that. And obviously, Coach York left, but him, Brendan Buckley, and Mike Ayers, they just created such a great room to be in. And so many guys just bought into that. And I think it's not goalie talent alone. I think it's just talent in general and good people. It's a great environment to be in. And I think it goes to show you when, all your top players like don't want to leave, but they have such a great opportunity to play in the NHL right away, but they don't want to leave. And also they're always coming back to see their buddies, and they're always there. They're everyone's still together, and I think that's just a testament to thank the school in general and the coaching staff. And I honestly think for me, and I'm a little biased, but it was the best place for me. And I think a lot of people who've been there and went there feel the same way.
Okay, so you go from there in such a supportive environment, and I love when you talk about the back and forth and the conversation. Sounds like you guys are talking about the game and the position, and it's not so much change this or change that as a back and forth, as a group effort in terms of how you develop. Now you go to Florida and you've got the goaltending excellence department, and you're surrounded by Roberto's around. I don't know how much you see Francois. You've got Sergei Bobrovsky there, 2-time Vezina Trophy winner, and Robbie Tallis. What's the transition? What's it like to walk straight out of college into a room with a 2-time Vezina winner, and Tally's been there forever and been a part of so many great goalies? How do you feel comfortable in that environment? What kind of support did they offer after that move?
Yeah, I'm really close with Bob and Tally, and Lou's always there too. And honestly, I feel in terms of Tally and Coach Ayers back at BC, they're very similar. And that's also why I really liked going to Florida and being here, is because I think, that relationship I had with Mike Ayers is very similar to the relationship I have with, with Tally. Like, I can go into their office and like, I can talk about whatever I want. It doesn't have to be about the game, right? And I think that's the biggest thing sometimes for me, is having that relationship with the goalie coach where I can, obviously talk about the game with, but also, I mean, it's sometimes like half the battle I have to learn pro is like the mental side outside the rink, right? And it's just sometimes just like Tally and I always talk about just put the cup down. When you leave the rink, you just got to put the cup down, and it means like you just got to let go. You can't be holding that baggage of a bad practice or a bad goal from a game for the rest of the time when you're not at the rink, because you essentially can't stop any pucks when you're not at the rink, right? So it's being able to put that down and just continue on with life. And I think that's why getting here and having all these people around me that I can lean on has been really helpful for me in my, the start of my career. Every time there's a situation where, I've been put in a little adversity or whatnot, I talk to Bob or I talk to Lou and they're like, yeah, I mean, I remember when that happened to me. Like they'll say the same thing. And so you always think you're like, oh my gosh, like my world's caving in. Then you realize that, what, you're not the only one that goes through this. And, it's not the end of the world. And just having that experience, I mean, the combined experience here in Florida for goaltending is insane. I think that's why it's so cool. I talked to Bob. We've grown really close over the past year, and he's just like one of the best pros out there. So level-headed, never lashes out. So that's why, I mean, I love it here. So it's great. I'm glad to be here for another 4 years. So.
And congratulations on the contract extension, by the way. Now, interesting in there, like you're a guy that sort of, like you said, you got to learn to let it go when you're not at the rink, but you're kind of I've always viewed you as one of those no stone unturned guys. You're always looking to get better. Mm-hmm. You're looking for ways to get better, and your work ethic is off the chart. I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone work as hard as Bob does at his game. What kind of lessons have you learned from him? You talked about, I remember watching I remember post game going into a room, and again, pandemic and everything. So it's probably got to be 3-4 years ago. And as the interviews were wrapping up, we're leaving, I think he was rolling out, if I remember correctly, a yoga mat, and he was starting to do some cool down exercises. And I was like, man, I wish I could just stay here and watch this, to see like that level of you. We heard about it. I heard about it from Tally. I'd heard about it from Ian Clark in Columbus, just that commitment to taking care of himself and doing the right things to prepare himself. Is there anything that you've taken from him that you've added to your routine that you can share without giving away too much?
Yeah. For sure. I definitely know what mat you're talking about. He probably had the blue yoga mat. Yeah. Yeah. But no, he's definitely someone that just works so hard, and everything he does, he's very mindful about it. But, the one thing that I think I can take from him is, yes, he works hard, but there's a reason to what he does, right? And he doesn't stress about his routine, or he just does what he thinks he needs to do, and he doesn't get distracted by all the outside noise where like, oh, I need to do this. It's just very controlled, and it's very he's very mindful about everything he does. So like what I take from that is that, all right, you can have your routine, but you need to make sure that your routine doesn't control you, and that's one thing Bob does. He has his routines, but they don't control him. He controls it, and he's changing things, and he's doing this, and it's all based off of feel, I feel like. And that's the one thing I can, take from him. And, that's the thing too. I find with goalies, everyone thinks, oh, you need to be in the gym for like 2 hours. This guy works so hard at this and that and whatnot. Sometimes the best thing to do is just, after a practice, if, you might need to just, you don't need to stretch. You don't need to do all these things sometimes. But everyone thinks like, oh, I need to do this. I need to stretch. All right. I think that's the kind of the thing is that goalies sometimes think there's always just so much more I need to do. Like this guy's doing this much more than me, but you need to do what's best for you. And that's one thing it's also not what I take from Bob, but it's one thing, I learned from my first few years that, I don't need to be Bob. I don't need to be at the gym as long as him, or I don't need to, do my warm up on the ice, the same as him. I'm me. And it's hard when you get in the NHL because you see all these great goalies that are just, you idolize growing up. But you also have to realize that you're you, and you need to be you, and you need to do what's best for you. And that's sometimes the thing is you just can't get caught doing something because someone else is doing it. Right. And that's the one thing I think I want to say I learned from Bob. I've learned through being around a goalie as established and, someone you looked up to growing up, and, what I take from that. So
it sounds like you've learned, like I've heard that lesson from other guys. They usually don't learn it that quick, to be honest with you, Spencer. Even Thatcher, when his first couple of years in the AHL, I remember him telling us that like he had sort of become not a slave to his routines, but he got to the point where there were so many of them pre-game that he was exhausted by the time the puck dropped. And so he just put them all aside and had a cup of coffee one day, and his season turned around. You know, we can be guilty of it here at InGoal. We show all these different things that goalies can do. Well, it doesn't mean you have to do all of them, right?
No, I know. Demko actually told me that same story. I mean, and that's probably when I first initially started, thinking, oh, you know what, like there's something to be said about sometimes not overdoing it. Because that's the thing is that I love like what I do, right? I love the on ice. I love the off ice. I'm healthy. I love eating healthy. I'm very knowledgeable, and I have a lot of people that are around me that are really knowledgeable and what's best for my body. And so I can tell you sometimes that there are things that people think are right that might not be right for someone else, right? And I don't know all the science about all of it, but there's something to be said about if you're just doing your routine and you're just so bored of it and you're just like, oh, like, why do I have to do this? But I'm doing it
for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. And that's what I've been really working on is just being, like, I'm playing hockey, like I don't need to do my routine. I can just play if I want to. And that's what I'm starting to realize now is that, you just got to play. And I like doing all the extra stuff. So I'm just more out of curiosity. So I do it more for fun. And in a sense, I'm getting a lot out of it because I'm also very mindful of what I need. But I'm not, just doing things just because I have to, or this guy says I have to, or, it just, you got to learn what works for you.
And that's interesting. We just had Chris Dreger on a little while ago, former Florida Panther, and he had talked to us about developing a routine before he sort of had his breakthrough later in his career. But then in Seattle last year, he found the same thing. He worked through it with a sports psychologist during a downtime, and it was like, hey, let's look at your routine and ask why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And by doing so, he filtered out a bunch of things and turned his season around. Right? Like sometimes we can just start doing things because we've been doing them, and we may not need all of them. So it's a great lesson for young goaltenders. And like I said, we're guilty at InGoal because we always want to give tools, right? So we see new things, we see new ideas, we share them with goalies. Probably a good lesson. Not everybody needs to add every one, or you'll be exhausted before you ever hit the ice.
That's the biggest thing. I'm always looking, like you said, like no stone unturned. I'm always looking for new things. I'm always trying new foods. I'm trying new mobility work, all this stuff that, just new and try it. But I'm trying out of curiosity. I'm not like, I'm not like, oh, I can't do this. It's not part of my routine. Or it just,
you got to find the ones that work.
You got to find the ones that work, and you can't. And like you said, that I liked how you said that, how you're asking yourself, why do I do this? And there are so many things in my routine where I'm like, why do I do that? I did the same thing. I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I'm like, oh, it's because I had a great game 2 years ago where I got a 40 save shutout, and I just happened to do it one day. But I never did it before them. Now I'm doing it every single day after. It's just like, and I'm just like starting to really realize there's something like, it's always with goalies too. It's just, I don't know. There's something weird about it. How we're creatures of habit, and it's a good thing. And it can be what makes us good. But at the same time, it could also be, a tribute to what could hurt us. Your biggest strength and your biggest weakness. And I don't know. I think I'm finally finding that, that balance of what routine and superstition are. And I'm not, blending on the side of superstition. It's more like the routine. Like I'm warming my body up because like, I think I need to do this or I need to do that. And not like I'm doing 20 jumping jacks and then 10 sprints and then, 3 jumps and then, 6 leg swings. Cause that's what I did. And it's just,
I love it. This is like turning into a Jedi session on how to get ready for a game. I love it. Well, you mentioned trying new things, so I got to ask. I was going to save this one for later. Obviously we've done a review on them. You're wearing them. Thoughts on Connect? What was the reaction in the locker room the first time the guys saw them?
Yeah, I know. Everyone just looks at them. They're like, "What the heck are those?" Like, they're like, "Do those things light up when you go on the ice or something?" Like, they think they're like spaceships or. But yeah, the Connects are great. I love them. I tried a demo set last summer, like 2 summers ago, and they had a lot of mobility in the ankle, almost like too much. So it was my first time trying. I'm like, whoa, this is just weird. So I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with them, but I told him that I thought like if there's a way to maybe make two settings, for the ankle mobility,
How
maybe
much
make one
flex?
that's like may a little less flex, and then you can take, get one that's maybe a little more flex. So the rep I work with, Tim Boron, he added that like that. You have him like that bolt in the back that stops it from going all the way. So and then I, got this pair this year. I had that, and it was still a little weird, but I had them in the summer, had them early. I kept wearing them, kept wearing them. And eventually I started getting more comfortable. I would go back to my trues, try those, go back to the connects. And eventually got to the point where I'm like, you know what, I actually really like these. And
Can I
now,
ask what it is is it the
yeah,
flex itself? What are the things
yeah,
where you feel the difference between the two?
yeah. So, I mean, me and I'm actually my workout partner in the summer, Strauss Mann and I, we're both wearing them. So we're both at the gym, like talking about what we like, what we don't like. And that flex, and I used to tie my skates tight because I liked having that responsiveness. But then he always said like it's probably better to have a little more flex and dorsiflexion just because you can keep your blade in the ice longer and just more natural. I'm like, all right, I think this is something that if I can try it and I can grow to like it, it could benefit my game. So that's what I was really working on, just because I know it is good, and eventually it just clicked. And I think that flex is great. I noticed, especially when I'm in my butterfly and I'm pushing, I like that. They're actually
Kind of like
really,
a load, like almost like you can load into it a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. It's almost just like, it just feels natural, like you don't have to pick up your, like, your legs so much, and then you have better ankle mobility. So it's more natural feeling.
Hmm.
Um, they feel really comfortable, which I really like. I like that. And obviously, I mean, like what everyone says, it's just a breeze taking them off.
It always go. Hey, listen, I'm old enough to go back to the day when Brian's first brought out Velcro straps and people looked at you sideways, and I'm like, man, I can get dressed and undressed in 2 minutes in the
Yeah.
locker room. There's a benefit there. It's a real thing.
It is. So I think there's something to be said about that. But no, I'm glad I'm wearing them now. I think they're, and I mean, this whole summer I kind of switched into a lot of gear, and Bauer just, they're new. I think the mock pads. I'm not even sure which ones I'm in, but I got like the stiff calf area now with the knee. And at first I didn't like that either, and I eventually just started to love it. And then the glove, I love the new glove. The new glove's awesome with, how the strap's a little higher and it's just the webbing's a little wider and deeper. And
What about the finger
so,
stalls?
oh yeah, those are great too.
The grips?
The grips, it's unreal. I love that. So that's a good setup. So
I wanted to ask you a little bit. We've talked so much about mindset. What about adjusting your game? You turn pro, the game's coming at you faster. It's so east-west. These are the best shooters in the world, both in practice and in-game scenarios. Do you have to be, like, I'm curious, did you have to tweak little things? Sometimes guys come into the NHL and they can chase change for the sake of change.
yeah.
What did you double down on as your sort of anchors? And were there little things that you had to adjust?
Yeah, I think when I turned pro, I was never a goalie that really, I was more like, calm, laid back style. And I think I started, challenging a little more. Just certainly great shooters and whatnot. You had to respect them, but I think I overdid it on that end a little bit. But now that I've played a little bit and kind of just become more comfortable, I've brought it back to where I think my game has always been, and where it's where I'm comfortable and where I feel best at. And that's just making reads and, just relying on that, staying on top of skating, and also, just working on a lot of just, not going straight into desperation mode all the time. Just working on trusting my feet. I work out in the gym and work on power and, speed so much for a reason. And I have to trust myself with that. And that's where I think, I've been working on a lot. It's just, there's so many goals that just you see where guys just open up and it's like, oh, you could have easily just pushed there. Because like a lot of pucks are coming through the middle of the ice, right? And It's just making sure you're just knowing that you can get there without that, going to desperation mode. And that's something that I think as time's gone on, I'm still working on it, and it still take time. That I noticed is that, like, just you don't need to make the big save. This save could be maybe look easy, and it can be. And that's back to what I think I've always done well, is like challenging that and trying to make things look easy.
I was going to say it's mostly tactical and trust by the sounds of it, and as opposed to, no, it's not like you've had to make any major technical changes. That's the hardest thing, right? Like trusting that everything that's worked to that point, as things get faster, hey, I can still beat that. I don't need to go goalie 911 prematurely here, that everything I've done to this point still works at this level. Telling yourself that and then trusting it are two different things.
And it really is. And it takes practice, because then, you'll do it where where the puck's going, and then you got to do it where, you have to make a read in practice. Then you do it in practice. And then then there's a game. And then that's the thing. That's why I think working on that trust and not being like, being a victim of your own routine, and just kind of like playing it back. Like, all right, it's a game, but it's still hockey. It's just hockey. Like, let's just relax here and just play your game. And that's another thing you gotta do is, it just takes a while to incorporate it and eventually get to that where in a game where you're not facing the same shot 20 times like you are in practice in a row, that you can do it. And that's where, hopefully, going to get to eventually.
How is how was your off season? I know I've been down there in Florida for the goalie sessions early in the year. Been blessed to be on the ice with Tally and Lou in one, I think his second to last season, and then Rhymes came down. I heard there were some big name Russians out there with them early in August this year. How about you? Do you stay back in the Connect? You mentioned Strauss, who we're big fans of as well. Like, how do you find that balance? What does the off season look like in terms of taking care of your body and doing that work? How much are you on the ice as well? And when do you make that transition down to Florida?
Yeah, so like you said, I go back to Connecticut in the summer. That's where I'm from, grew up, and live today. And I work out Apprentice Performance with Ben Prentice, and Rob Dombrowski is our trainer there last year.
That's a who's who gym. There's a lot of big NHLers in that gym, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's a great gym. We got a great group of guys there. But yeah, so I worked out with Strauss, and you want to talk about dialed in. I don't think I've ever met anyone that's more committed to being dialed in than Strauss. And I can say that confidently. I don't think there's anyone that, and that's the thing. It's like your biggest strength, your biggest weakness. And, we've talked about this, is that sometimes like being the most dialed in isn't always the best. And that's something that I think we're both realizing, is that we play hockey because we love it. And, playing games at 7:00 at night and flying and playing back-to-backs are not optimal, right? But yet we have to do it because if we want to play the game that we love. So, but back to the point, we would hash out some stuff, but we really worked on just strength, mobility, and speed, and just all this stuff. And it was a great summer, and I think I came down to Florida a little later. Like, I don't really skate much until August, like midway through August, maybe. I don't know. That's always just what I've been doing. I try to get my body in great condition. And I take pride in that and making sure that my body's right for the season. And then, and I started slowly skating, building it up. And eventually by camp, because camp is still, a pretty long time.
Yep.
That like when I'm at camp, I'm still not peaking yet. And that's kind of the thing, is that it's just making sure you're just building constantly. And that's why I think I start the process and wait so long to skate. I want to be able to build strength and mobility and endurance that can build and withhold through camp into the regular season. And that's why I slowly start to skate, slowly start to build it up. And it's more just to get on the ice than anything and work on small things. I'm not really just getting on there to, bag myself. Then eventually camp comes, and that's when everything kind of picks up, and you got to do things that test and all, skates, they're a little longer, and that's when I think that tests what I've done this summer. And that's why I always think I've always stayed off the ice, is just so I'm ready and fresh and just confident in my body and myself going to camp when it matters.
Has there been pressure in the past to get on earlier? Because there's like younger guys, like we see guys that are on the ice in July, and yet over my right shoulder here is the jersey of one Carey Price, who never touched the ice before August. His entire career, that was one of his things, and it served him pretty darn well.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think everyone has their own way, and I definitely have felt pressure. I think going into my rookie year, like I waited a long time to get on the ice just because we had to go. We were doing development camp and then rookie tournament and then main camp all in a row. And like I knew, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a long, however long that was. It's going to be a long time. It's going to be a lot. We're playing 2 games in the rookie tournament. Development camp, we're going to be doing, a hard workout, a hard skate every day. And then main camp, and then we have main camp. So I knew that. And I felt pressure. People like, oh, like, people are like, are you going to get on the ice? And, players always ask me, like, when are you coming on the ice? Like, we need a goallie, 3-on-3.
Oh, forget that. They just want to target.
Like, yeah, all right, buddy. Like, whatever. But, yeah, I have felt pressure. But then I think I come to camp and people see where I'm at physically. And I think they start to respect it more. And I think that's the thing, is that as I get older and I feel more confident in myself, and people are, stop questioning what I do and why I do it, then it just become easier. And I think a lot of goalies from, hopefully open up to that, is that, like you said, back to the whole thing. You don't need, if you hear a goalie is skating in July or is doing this, like that doesn't mean you need to do it. If the best goalie in the world's doing it, still doesn't mean that you need to do it. Maybe you try it and then maybe it works for you, but maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. But yeah, I think that it also allows me to come to the rink, come camp, and like I'm excited. I'm like, let's go. Like I want to play. And I wish camp was shorter. I wish I'm like, let's go. I'm ready to play games.
Ready for game one. Yeah.
I mean, I really am. I think that's the thing, is that it's such a long season, and making sure your body can withhold that is so important, because I want to be available all the time, and like wanting to be on the ice every single day. And that's what I think I get out of my summers.
I love it. Hey, one last one. I want to go right back to the beginning here, because you talked about opportunity, and the decision to turn pro, and how goalies don't normally get that opportunity. We've kind of seen a bit of a changing of the guard here over the past couple of years. I mean, like I said, I pointed to the Price jersey over my shoulder. He's not going to play this year. If I move and get out of the way, the other 2 jerseys behind me are Henrik Lundqvist and your director of goaltending excellence, Roberto Luongo. I mean, 3-4 years ago, all those guys were dominant number ones in the NHL. In some cases, just 2 years ago. We've seen Tuukka, other guys sort of, like, I feel like sort of quietly, without a lot of recognition, close to a third of the league's sort of long-standing number one 60 to 70 game a year guys are gone. Like, do you feel like do you guys are you aware of that? I've never asked you maybe I have and I've forgotten, but who your guy was growing up. And do you feel like you're part of that shift? Do you think there's more young goalies that are sort of eager to jump into those roles and be that next wave, that next generation of Luongos and Prices and Lundqvist?
Yeah, no, that for sure. I think growing up, I was a Lundqvist guy, because I grew up obviously right outside New York
City. Connecticut.
So I watched him, I mean, countless times. But yeah, I think there is a good wave of young goalies that will eventually, come into the NHL, and then you'll see that, like, how good they actually are. And that's the things that, with all the media and talk, and there's goalies are it's just hard, because the position is just so different. I think, and as goalies, I think other goalies can respect it and like see it when they like, all right, this goalie's good, like he's not playing in the NHL, but he's going to be an NHL starter, like that. And I'm excited for it. And I hope guys can get in younger, because I think there is value to giving these guys games and building their confidence, and just allowing them to see it at a young age. And some of these guys are ready, maybe they're not ready to be number ones, but they're ready to be just given a shot, right? I think that opportunity is just the biggest part about it. And I feel like you see it in every sport, right? you see guys retire, like oh my gosh, like all these, great basketball players, all these great, golfers, all these guys are retiring. Like, what's going to happen in the game? But then the new crop comes, right? And then it's like, okay, now look at these guys and these guys. But yeah, I know it's definitely, I think in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of like really good younger goalies, and hopefully that's, keeps trending as where, guys can just realize this, that these guys are good, even if they're not playing the NHL.
You had an opportunity to go to the AHL for a little bit last year, often like when you weren't playing a lot. Do you see that? I've seen other teams do it. I know Columbus did it with Corpy. Nashville did it with UC, with Saros. Like they, if Pekka was playing a ton and they had a weekend where they knew Pekka was going to play the only game, they'd swap goalies with the AHL, let Juice go down to their affiliate and play both games on a weekend. Is that a way to sort of, because you get all that opportunity in the NHL to be around it, to learn it, but still, games played matters too. Is that you went through that a couple of times last year? I know talking to Tally, maybe they would have liked to have done it a little more in those windows where Bob was starting a lot. Is there value there to that sort of set of systems where you can be a part of the NHL team, but still every once in a while go get a couple games played somewhere else?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's also a thing. Playing games is, you need to play games.
Right.
I mean,
the reads and all those things, they need to become instinctual.
They need to. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's on the NHL. Obviously, it's the highest league, but even going to the AHL and playing, it's still, and you're just making those reads because, and I'm sure most goalies and most just athletes and competitors in general feel this way. Like, it doesn't matter if you're playing the NHL or the AHL. You're still preparing the same way and going into the game with the same mindset, right? And just getting into that mindset and having to be challenged yourself. There's value in that. And that's why I was, going to Charlotte was, I think, so good for me, is because I'm just getting more games, just making reads, just playing more. And to me, that's what I love about hockey, is I love playing the game. I love practice. I love the off ice stuff. I love it all. I can do it, all day, but playing games is so valuable. And that's what I love to do. I want to play games, it's one of those things that I think I was talking to Tally, but I think I saw like Lou, I think in Vancouver, he played like 76 one year.
Yeah, they rode him pretty hard back then.
Yeah, you don't see that anymore. I'm like, I'm gonna play 77 one year just to beat him, So like, but maybe I can't play 77 games in a year, but that's what I want to try. That's just what, like, my ultimate vision. I just want to play 60, 70. I want to play 70 games in a year. So I just want to play. I practice or whatever, but like, I want to play games. And I think that's where that value of going down and going back and forth can be good too. It doesn't, you're playing games in NHL, and that's, obviously amazing. But playing games the AHL is just so valuable. And that's the thing. Some people are like, oh, it's like, oh, you'll be back soon. Like, it's all good. Like, I'm like, no, it's fine. Like, have to go play a game. Like, I don't really care. Like, whatever. It's not a big deal.
I've applauded teams that do it. Like, cause I think it's just like, it's one of the best ways to find that balance between the two. You're still in the NHL. You're still around these guys on a weekly basis. You go down for a weekend or a week or 2 weeks or whatever. But you're getting the best of both worlds, in my opinion, at a time when we see other teams where they'll leave a guy, he doesn't play a bunch, and before you know it, he needs waivers to clear, and because everybody knows he's a really good goalie, he can't go down there and get those games in anymore. Yeah. So I know everybody looks at it and sort of side eyes it, but to me, it's a no brainer.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when you're young and you don't have to clear waivers, there's definitely value to that. And it's something that I think it's just great. And if the teams can time it well, it's just valuable.
Yeah.
I think, I have a lot of friends down in Charlotte. It's a great city. I had a ton of fun with those guys. They have a great group of guys down there.
And you're in an organization where the goalie department, everybody's on the same page. I'm not sure how much Leo's down there. It's not like you're down there and you're left to your own devices either.
No, well, that's the thing. Like, Charlie, Leo's there, and like I have a really good relationship with him too. And that's the thing, is that he knows my game. So when I would go down there, it wasn't like, hey, nice to meet you. It was like, it's like we were on the same page about everything. But I think playing games, you need to play games, and like you said, especially at a young age, and because when you're playing once every week and a half,
That's
it
tough.
does. It's not one. It's not fun. And no goalie likes sitting on the bench.
It's not why we play.
No, exactly. That's the thing. As a young goalie, what like you don't want to sit on the bench. Maybe they tell a four that like no one does, right? It's only it's like as a competitor, it's only right to just want to play games. Yeah, I can only say enough, but yeah, there's tremendous value to that, and I think people need to go in as a have the mindset. You know what? It's not a demotion. It's more just stuff like one of those things that you're just stay in rhythm. Stay in cycle, right? And that's very valuable.
Well, this time has been very valuable. A lot of lessons about approach, mindset, preparation. Spencer, I can't thank you enough for spending all this time. It's good to catch up with you again. This is third time on. Like you're going to set a record here. We had you pre-draft. We had you post-World Juniors. I still got it. Wolfie told me about the sort of hands, and he told me that came from World Juniors. I'm watching the way he holds his hands. He said that came from you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
said he fixed those hands there. He was getting a little too out in front of him and a little too loose.
Yeah, well, yeah, Wolf. Yeah, we're probably talking about like happy hands and stuff. I mean, we can get technical, but like when goalies are just, they're just so handy and like pucks go through them. But it's not like having your hands back, but just being comfortable, and just having them, just not doing too much of them. But yeah, no, that's another, one of those great goalies. I think, in a few years, he's gonna people are realize how good he is. I mean, it's only a matter. There's all these goalies that I've played with and worked out with, and I'm like, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, and it's funny. I get to watch him up close and personal. The poor bugger has to come through Vancouver a whole bunch here now, so he'll be sick of me.
Yeah.
You get to only deal with me every once in a while, but poor Dustin gets it all the time now. So
yeah.
I know how good he is, and it's been fun to watch him in both preseason just a couple weeks ago and then also in the American League. So I look forward to catching up with both of you in the near future. Spencer, thanks so much for your time today. I know our audience is going to love this.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me.
First of all, I love the term happy hands. I don't know. Sometimes it means good things. Sometimes it means bad things. But just happy hands makes me smile. Like hearing that.
And we had, this is one where I'll say, go back and listen to the Dustin Wolf conversation from last year during Wolfie's American Hockey League Goalie of the Year campaign. We had him and his goalie coach on at the same time, Thomas Spear at the time. And they talked about, because Dustin almost looked like he had his hands pinned back a little bit. And that's not the right phrase, but instead of having them just all out and all over the place. And he talked about that was something he was struggling with at the World Juniors. And it was a tip from Spencer that sort of dialed him in. And obviously he's continued to build on it with the year he had as a first year pro last year. So, all these, I love the guys that are always trying to find ways to get better. And I love that guys like Spencer talked about having the conversation with Demko about ditching, parts of his routine. Like there's a goalie union there amongst these guys that they do talk to each other. They do look for ways to get better from each other. And it's fascinating to hear from a guy who you can hear it from his answers. Like he doesn't just answer. There's a pause there. He gives everything thought. And I think that's how he approaches his game as well. Not just, okay, I'm going to do this, but hey, this looks interesting. I'm going to try it. How and why should I or would it maybe help my game? Like there's a real thought process that goes into these things.
But with a caveat, which he pointed out, you don't have to be all in on everything, which is great to the point of distraction or being overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, and there's that, and again, it's that balance, right? It's that balance.
Yet, the no stone unturned side of that, guys, is that he's willing to look at everything. And having that open mind as a goaltender is also incredibly important. Not just one way. What can I sample and see if it might fit into my program?
27 starts last year. How many more do you think he gets this time around? Paul Maurice is the coach. Paul Maurice is generally, there's been two parts of Paul Maurice. He's gone with a platoon back in the Carolina days, and he had Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg, and Connor played a ton. I'm trying to decide where Spencer Knight fits in with that formula. What do you think, Hutch?
really complicated situation, if only because of the contracts involved and that Bob himself is playing well. So it's going to be really an interesting battle. I think Paul Maurice is probably a guy who will see it in a sort of meritocracy standpoint. Whoever's playing well is going to get the playing time. I think it's definitely possible that we see Spencer Knight earn more starts than he did last year. And then if he can establish himself a little bit more, do they look at finding a way to move Bob at some point? I don't see how you live with $13-14 million in goaltending, but.
Well, hey, listen, like they tried already, right? We talked about that in the summer. There was no secrets.
Probably will again.
Yeah, there was no secrets that they've tried. At the end of the day, I think it'll depend, as Hutch said, meritocracy, how both guys play. But I think the beautiful thing is it's a conversation in Florida that's not just, with all due respect, not just Paul Maurice. Like there's a goaltending department there, strong voices about the position that will make sure they find a way to balance those two things. Yes, the coach has final say, but I think, Robbie Tallis, as long as he's been there, Roberto Luongo leading the goalie excellence department, Leo Luongo, who Spencer talked about when he does go to the AHL, which remains an option. Don't forget, I'm pretty sure Spencer still can go to the American League without clearing waivers. And you heard his mindset about it. Like if that's something that's necessary to play games, he's not going to see it as a demotion. He's going to see it as an opportunity. So I think they're an organization that understands goaltending, and is doing it the right way. And I think they'll do it the right way when it comes to managing those minutes.
That was fresh. I just want to play games. Let me play games, up or down. I just want to go out there. It's more fun doing that. And I thought that was such a inspirational message, an important message for all goaltenders of all ages, unless you're men's league, where all tell you to do is play games, and the odd practice probably wouldn't hurt you.
Hey, let me ask this one, because you guys both play. Well, Hutch less so these days, but man, like, did we lose a lot of beer league goalies in the pandemic? Like, I'm taking this totally off the rails. I swear to God, if I wanted to, I could play every single night, and I suck right now. So the fact that I'm getting requests to play every single night tells you there is a real shortage. Like I've just never seen it. Like it's so hard to find guys to play goal. And like if I have to miss a game, I'm 12 deep in my Rolodex before I can find somebody. I actually had to use a Rent-A-Goalie app, for crying out loud. I've never seen it like this. So out of the blue, end of the conversation, weird Woodley thing, but like, are you guys seeing the same thing? Maybe we throw it out to the audience. Send us an email. Let us know if you're experiencing the same thing in your local beer leagues or pickup games.
Well, it's hard too, and the guys that are playing more, and that could have an impact. Like if you played 6 days a week, what do you think your body would feel like?
Garbage.
Yeah.
That maybe this is just because I'm getting older.
How many days a week do you need to play to feel your best?
3.
I prefer 3, but I can get away with 2.
Yeah.
2 would be awesome.
Any more than 3, and I'm probably looking for somewhere else to live.
But I was actually thinking about that just the other day, because I don't think 1 is enough. I think not nearly enough. And I don't think that's just related to ice time. And then you look at all these kids trying to develop their game coming up, right from, 5 years up till 16, 17, 18-year-olds. And often they're getting 1 game a week. And as Spencer described in the interview today, like you just can't replace games played. That's come up time and time again. And yet young kids are coming up through the system, maybe playing once a week. And even as beer leaguers, we recognize we need more than once a week. How you fix that, I don't know, but I think it recognizes the difficulty in developing as a goaltender.
Well, one way to fix it, Sense Arena.
Maybe that's why you're having trouble, because all the beer league goalies out there are just saying, why get hit in the head out on the ice with a bunch of beer leaguers? I'm just going to stay home with Sense Arena.
I think actually why I'm having trouble is I'm actually saying yes to too many of these games rather than actually just working on Sense Arena.
I think the new Sense Arena slogan should be, and your hands don't stink. That should be the ultimate slogan, because you don't have to put on those mitts.
No laundry to do after practice.
In my case, it would be, Woody, you still stink, but your hands won't.
There you go.
What do you think of Spencer's comments about the wheels?
Oh, yeah. We almost forgot to come back to you on that, didn't we?
Yeah.
We've certainly seen that a lot. They talked about it because by the time you get to that level, you've been in skates and used to that lack of Dorsey flexion for so long. it can be a little much. So Bauer did sort of use a screw, is my understanding, for guys their first time to almost create like basically a limiter. I'm looking for the word you use on a gas pedal when your kid's just learning to drive, that prevents them from going as fast as it could. Kind of like that. So
do those exist? Because I got somebody learning to drive right now.
They do, and I'm just brain cramping on the name for it. But basically, so it limits how much forward it can go. And most of the time, guys will then take it out and go to the full range after a while. But it sounds like Spencer just likes it where it is, not quite the full range of forward flex, but a certain degree of it. So now I'm dying to hear, Darren, what other modifications you've seen to these.
Well, it deals with the flex, and you guys are familiar with the hinge part of it, and on the skate. And for those that have not seen the Connect skate, grab a visual off the internet and
maybe at InGoalMag.com where there's a free and unlocked review.
Thank you.
Yeah,
exactly. So around the hinge, that wheel, there's the plastic. Some of the goalies are cutting down that plastic on the outside to create more flex, because the actual plastic will come so forward, but then it butts up against another part of the skate.
So in other words, they're trying
trimming it out, trimming it up, and creating more flex to their skate.
We've got guys that are putting a limiter on there. Again, I'm looking for folks, help me out here. Send it to InGoalMag.com, info@InGoalMag.com when you realize how stupid I am and that there's a proper word for this. But
that's all three of us, because I have no idea what the word you're talking about either.
We've got another, and you're telling me we got guys that are trying to create even more forward flex.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
On both sides, a little bit in the back, just to create a more relaxed leg ankle position.
Straight up.
Yeah. And then going forward, chopping that down and making sure that you can get a little bit more forward with that skate. Because coming from a couple of other manufacturers, guys were not doing the eyelets going all the way to the top, because they wanted the more flexation. And this with the Connect was just a little bit too stiff, and now coming forward a touch. So I thought that was fascinating, that with that hinge in there, they wanted even more flexibility in being able to lean forward.
Something I would definitely like to try, but I'm not sure I can take a box cutter to my $1,000 skates.
Yeah, well,
that's a toughie.
The guys I'm talking to have, and this
one
guy in the east, one guy in the west.
Yeah.
The other part was the belts, the being able to do them up and being able to dial it in. It's very much a trial and error. Try it, adjust it. Try it, adjust it. And they started at the very tight part, and then moved on and dial it back each skate. So just trying to get through it, because it is so much different than any other skate that you've worn. Well,
and but the beauty is, once you get it to where you like it, you can leave it there and it's the same every time. Spencer talked about it, like, boom, boom, on the ice. No more skate laces, no more messing around, getting out on the ice and being like, oh man, I didn't tie this tight enough. Now what do? I'm on the ice. I can't take my whole pad off to tighten, retie my skate. You're dialed in once you've got that spot, and you're good to go for the rest of the time.
The other big bonus, and this comes from a National Hockey League goalie who I talked to on the phone the other day. The idea that they can get ready so much quicker with those skates, just latching up the belts, the hinges, is such a great thing. Like it cuts it down. You wouldn't think that tying up skates would cause that much of a difference, but he said he's done. He's out there. He's ready to go. Ready to rock with these new skates.
When you're on the ice as much as those guys are.
Yeah,
it makes a difference.
Love it. So there's just a little bit of insight. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but there is some modifications being done to create a little more sway in the hinge.
I love it. No, we think we've reinvented the wheel, and guys want to. That's the nature of custom goalies, right? We reinvented the wheels, and guys still got to customize and tweak it.
Awesome stuff. What's going on over at the InGoal Mag?
More pro reads. We got more guests lined up this week to do even more pro reads. After our conversation with Spencer, we agreed to set up a time for in the next couple of weeks. Jeremy Swayman, same thing. So we'll be adding some fresh voices to the pro reads over the next couple of weeks. We got an article with Alex Nedeljkovic with a great little, just the simplest tip on how to monitor whether you're placing your inside edge in a reverse VH when you're doing your warm-ups. Just sort of do your warm-ups, do your RVH work on your RVH, and then look on the ice and you'll be able to tell whether you're using that inside edge properly or not. Great little tip from him. That's up at ingoalmag.com. We've got more work I'm supposed to set up or have set up and supposed to hop on a Zoom call with Ian Clark from the Vancouver Canucks. So more Thatcher Demko drills, folks, and one of the best goalie coaches in the game sharing insights on how they do things, why they do things, and video of them doing those things. So lots of great stuff. No better place to get content from NHL goalies and goalie coaches that'll help make you a better goalie. Just $50 Canadian a year. It's practically free in the States. And for another 2 weeks, the month of October, right through the end of Halloween, 50% of all subscription revenue, all new subscription revenue goes to our good friends at October Saves. So sign up now.
You don't have to be a goalie to really appreciate those pro reads either. So even as a goalie parent, looking at that tip from Ned this week that Woody just published, changed the way I was watching games this weekend because I noticed things happening on the ice as a direct result of reading that tip, and it just made it a more interesting experience to see what NHL goaltenders are doing. And spoiler, not every NHL goaltender is doing it the way that Alex Nedeljkovic thinks it should be done.
Well, I got to go, guys, because I haven't seen that yet, and I'm intrigued by it. I want to go watch it. So if you guys don't mind, can I go dive into Ned's tip?
Sure, yeah. Woody will finish off the show for you. Yeah, take it easy.
With failing hands, I pass the torch.
Hit the like, subscribe button, and we will talk to you next week here on the InGoal Radio podcast. Love y'all.